Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination, cultivating the art of living well, a life of quality over quantity. Visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, at our simplified URL, tsll.co, or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. There you'll find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From a Monday motivational post, recipes, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and readers' favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which is posted each Friday morning. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 311th episode of The Simple Sophisticate, and welcome to the start of Season 8. So happy to be back in this space with you after a couple weeks to kind of set up and get prepared and focus forward after we wrapped up French Week in the middle of August. And so I want to get right into this. We have an episode that is all about accepting something that we all know is true, but truly accepting it, and then how accepting this truth sets us free to live more deeply. What the heck am I talking about? I will get to that in a second. And as always, there is a petit plaisir at the end of every single episode of The Simple Sophisticate, and today I have two for you as we kick off a new season. So let's dive in to episode 311. All right. So the book that inspired today's episode was one that I have actually been patiently waiting or impatiently waiting once I learned it was going to be released. Just this last August, early August, a columnist for The Guardian, Oliver Burkeman, released his second book. And he just concluded his job or his career or his writing career at The Guardian. And he's been working on this book for the last couple of years, and we've known that this book was coming out, and the title was just so intriguing. So I put it on my pre-order list, and I waited to see when the official date would be announced with all the pandemic shifting around for publications, and finally they said it, and it arrived, and I've been reading a chapter every night, but just one chapter because I wanted to fully absorb it. What the heck am I talking about? Okay, so the title of this book, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. Today's episode is titled, How Accepting Your Mortality Sets You Free to Live More Deeply. Let me begin with a quote from the book. The world is already broken, and what's true of the state of civilization is equally true of your life. It was always already the case that you would never experience a life of perfect accomplishment or security. And your 4,000 weeks have always been running out. It's a revelation, though. When you begin to internalize all this, even just a bit, the result is not despair, but an energizing surge of motivation. You realize that you never really needed the feeling of complete security you'd previously felt so desperate to attain. This is liberation. From Oliver Burkeman, his book, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. Admittedly, the length of a human life is short when we take the long view of civilization, so it is understandable for us to make the most of our time. However, in doing so, we often go about making the most of it in unhelpful, counterintuitive ways. Oliver Burkeman wrote a long-running and award-winning weekly column for The Guardian up until last year. He is also the author of The Anecdote, Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking. And so reading his final column for The Guardian, which is titled Oliver Burkeman's last column, The 8 Secrets to a Fairly Fulfilled Life, and also reading the synopsis for his first book, I had an idea of his frank yet considered and sincere approach to what he shares with his readers. 4,000 Weeks is not your typical time management book. Let's just start there. I had a reader last month when I shared on a weekly this and that this book had just been released and I was going to start reading it. And they said, honestly, I looked at the title of his last column and I thought, oh, another, so-called expert telling us how to live well. And she said how relieved I was to read this column. And I appreciated his, as I mentioned, his frankness, his deprecation, but also there's something there to be gained in his honesty. And that's what drew me to his book. It is a book to open our eyes to the reality of our mortality. No matter how much we may profess we accept that we will die, we demonstrate through our actions how we live each day that we may not have actually absorbed this full truth about life having an end. But don't worry, Burkeman shares in his introduction that his objective is to write a book that helps each of us, quote, redress the balance of our finite time on this planet and engage productively with fellow citizens, current events, and the fate of the environment in order to see if we can't discover or recover some ways of thinking about time that do justice to our real situation, to the outrageous brevity and shimmering possibilities of our 4,000 weeks. I have pulled 10 tips that he shares about how to live more deeply for today's episode and thus find more contentment in our everydays and our entire life. However, there is much more in the book than what I'm going to share with you, and I highly recommend reading it in its entirety. And as I mentioned, I read this one chapter a night. The chapters aren't that long, but they're so dense in the sense that it's asking you to think about something seemingly very simple, but it's helpful, at least for me, to sit back and digest it for another 24 hours before I dove back in again. All right, so let's get into the list. I'm actually starting with 0. And the first non-item on this list is titled, Understand the Truth About Time Management of Our Finite Amount. Quote, productivity is a trap. Becoming more efficient just makes you more rushed, and trying to clear the decks simply makes them fill up again faster. End quote. What Burkeman does well throughout his book is balance each assertion, especially ones that may throw you off guard initially, with a counter-argument. And in his awareness, he brings the truth of our humanness on this earth to the forefront for each of us to do with as we see fit. However, now we cannot do it ignorantly. When we finally accept that our to-do list will not be checked off entirely, ever, 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 when we acknowledge we can't plan with an ever more perfect planning system, you know what I'm talking about here, the right amount of boxes, the right amount of lines, just one more page for that daily list or one more open, monthly planner with all enough space to write just a few more commitments, highlighter colors, tabs. If I could just add one more element to the planning system, it would be just perfect. No, these will not bring more contentment into our lives. At long last, he says, we can turn to the things life is really supposed to be about. As many listeners and readers know, I have used a planner nearly all of my life. A hold in my hand planner, some kind of a book or pen to paper kind of planner. And I've been doing this since I was a teenager, and I've been shifting through different ones, trying to find the right one, finding ones that fit the new life that I was shifting into, whatever that might have been at the time. And I still do, and I will continue to do it even after reading this book. That's not what he's trying to get us to do, not plan. But what he points out is that there's never going to be a perfect planning system, ever. And what I mean by perfectly is that I can plan my life to run smoothly, productively, and happily each and every day. I cannot achieve this or find the particular planning system that will help me do it because it will never exist. What does exist is each of us for a short amount of time, approximately, if we are lucky, 4,000 weeks here on our planet. What will we do with that time? I think this book does a very nice job of gently but strongly waking us up to this reality. Just asking this question, what will we do with our time, feels as though pressure has been placed on our shoulders, which is why Burkeman begins with his assertion about productivity being a trap. And then in each subsequent chapter, he offers insights for enjoying more fully your life. Because when we take on the pressure of making our lives count, and I put that in air quotes, we do ourselves and our present being a disservice that undercuts what we say we are actually trying to do, which is live well. So we're not actually doing that. We're not actually living well, but we're saying that we are. And let me explain throughout the list today why you actually are not living well if you get stuck in this productivity trap. Now let's take a look at 10 approaches to, once we've accepted that we are mortal human beings, that we can then live fully without distraction in each present moment as a way to achieve great contentment in our everydays. Here we go. Number 1, acceptance of our short lives is a cause for relief. Quote, "You get to give up on something that was always impossible. The quest to become the optimized, infinitely capable, emotionally invincible, fully independent person you're officially supposed to be. Then you get to roll up your sleeves and start work on what's gloriously possible instead." I want to start with this primary acceptance that the book urges us to take, because I have a feeling what we are seeking when errantly, but with good intentions, we try to make the most of our lives, is that we are looking for a life that when we go to bed at night, our mind is at peace. The peace that we are seeking will not come, though, not fully, not completely, until we each accept our own mortality and give up the quest to be a better you or me or us, a more optimized person, a more invincible person who does everything right in the eyes of society that you are trying to please, whatever group or person or institution that is. Put that responsibility down, put it away, walk away from it. It's not yours to carry. Let's just start there. And you may be saying, what is she talking about? The next steps will explain more fully. But just first accept your mortality, because what he's going to talk about here in a moment that I'm going to share in the next few points is what we're really doing when we try to be a better person than we were yesterday is running away from the truth of mortality. Number 2, shift how you see and define time. In fact, let go of trying to define it. Quote, "Once time is a resource to be used, you start to feel pressure, whether from external forces or from yourself, to use it well and to berate yourself when you feel you've wasted it." End quote. Burkeman calls accepting the definition of time as a resource is a rigged game, quote, in which it's impossible ever to feel as though you're doing well enough, end quote. Why? Because it pulls us away from the present moment, as we are doing something we think will make tomorrow better, and thereby our eventual present better. But look at that again. When we are tending to tasks to help out our future, we are never in the present. Quote, "Leading a life spent leaning into the future, worrying about whether things will work out, experiencing everything in terms of some later hoped-for benefit," end quote, robs us of our lives because we are actually never in the present living them. Ultimately, we are living on the surface of life and negating the possibility to experience what Burkeman calls deep time, which is that sense of timeless time, which depends on forgetting the abstract yardstick and plunging back into the vividness of reality instead. In other words, we need to let ourselves find moments of flow where time seems to stop. We know that it never actually does, but we are not checking the clock. We are wholly present in the moment and absorbed with the task, the conversation, the moment, the view, the painting, the music, whatever it might be. We need more of these moments to deepen the quality of our everyday lives. All of this is to say we need to let go. We need to do some planning, and Burkeman acknowledges it's not a bad thing to plan for retirement, our child's college, how to earn money to pay for our bills, but we take it so much further than the necessities. We need to let go. We can be in the present fully and enjoy this awesome thing called life we have been given. I mean, how lucky. And really, there is so much luck, so much we have absolutely no control over that has brought us to where we are, to be this person that we are. We have been given this opportunity to live 4,000 weeks. Let's live it. So that's number 2. Shift how you define time. In fact, let go of defining it. Don't treat it as a commodity, not to be wasted. Number 3, don't treat your life as a vehicle to a future state of happiness. Quote, to treat all these moments, the last time of doing anything, solely as a stepping stone to some future moment is to demonstrate a level of obliviousness to our real situation that would be jaw-dropping if it weren't for the fact that we all do it all the time, end quote. Pointing out that, quote, rich people in capitalist economies are often surprisingly miserable, even though they are experts at instrumentalizing their time for the purpose of generating wealth for themselves, they end up treating their lives in the present moment as nothing but a vehicle in which to travel toward a future state of happiness, end quote. But before we bash our capitalists and those with great wealth, they are behaving in the same way most of us are when we choose to use time in an instrumental way, as a tool to attain something and not be wasted. Quote, a feeling of being in omnipotent control of our lives, end quote. The shift needs to occur with what was discussed in number 2. We need to let go. We need to be brave by choosing to be present in our lives. Yes, if we are so fortunate, we will live our tomorrow and the next tomorrow, but the present is all we have each and every day. If we are so busy saving and working and strategizing for a better tomorrow, a more secure tomorrow, we are actually not living. We aren't actually loving. There is no depth. The quality of living has been dismissed as a waste of time, but the reality is all we have is time in the present. That is all that is guaranteed. So that's number 3. Don't treat your life as a vehicle to a future state of happiness. Number 4, improve the skill of being present, being mindful. Quote, a more fruitful approach to the challenge of living more fully in the moment starts from noticing that you are, in fact, always already living in the moment anyway, whether you like it or not, end quote. Desiring to live in the present, while a great start, is not enough to hold you in the present and enable you to live fully. As Burkeman writes, quote, to try to live in the moment implies that you're somehow separate from the moment, and thus in a position to either succeed or fail at living in it, end quote. The reality is you are always, and we're always, and will always be of the moment to begin with, as the quote I just read reminds. So how do we do what we likely accept we need to do after listening so far to this podcast episode, reading Burkeman's book, and reflecting on moments in our lives when we were present and experienced great joy? We let go of expectations of what any moment should be and let ourselves just be in the moment. Not on the sidelines watching, but immersing ourselves. For example, Burkeman shares how when we go to a museum, if we are taking out our phone and videotaping or capturing the paintings with our phone, we are not present. Instead, we are capturing something for a future moment. The same applies to a moment where you are not pulling out your phone per se, but you're hoping something occurs that would, make your to-do list or bucket list complete. Set expectations aside. Set that phone down. Engage with what is and who is present. Take it all in. Be who you are and set yourself free to savor what transpires. If there is one area of weakness in this book, for me, it was chapter 8, this chapter, which is titled You Are Here. And it's a whole discussion about being present, which I appreciate. And I think this is a skill that's necessary for his entire argument to, find more fulfillment in our limited amount of time on this earth. What makes presence hard is that it is a skill and we have to practice it. Practice it to progress our abilities to do it seemingly naturally in every day and every moment of our lives. It will not just happen, as it took conditioning since we were very young, the moment we were told to pass this class so we can step forward into the next grade. Middle school success would be beneficial for high school placement in different courses, and then, do well in high school so you can move on to college. We've been conditioned to be future thinkers. This is not a bad thing, but we've been conditioned to not be present. And so it's going to be really hard to learn how to be present every single day. So it does feel like this conditioning is ingrained, but indeed it is something that we have learned, and that is good news. I guess part of why I challenge his assertions that being present is really hard and nearly impossible to do all the time and do well. I mean, you should see my annotations as I'm reading this particular chapter. I'm like, well, your examples are anecdotal, and they are these are real experiences certain people have had of trying to stay present. But while he brought to the forefront a truth to accept, it dismissed it as nearly impossible to achieve, claiming that as humans, we have an extreme aversion to being present, I think is a faulty one. But as a listener of this show, as a reader of the blog, I know you know that we do not have an aversion to being present. Our temperaments may aid or make more difficult holding ourselves fully in the present, but so do, and more significantly, our upbringings, the nurturing we have received, what was modeled, taught, and expected. It is my hope that by living simply luxuriously, we witness firsthand how our everydays are elevated. When we hold ourselves in the present, we remain conscious and we savor the simple beauty in seemingly quotidian events, objects, sights, etc. So yes, being present is vital, but I don't think it's near impossible to achieve. I think it gets easier the more we practice it. If we only had it modeled, if it only was not shoved aside and future thinking was more ingrained, then it would seem an easier skill to learn. But it can be achieved. So that's number 4. Improve the skill of being present, being mindful. Number 5, the crutch of distraction. Quote, rather than taking ownership of our lives, we seek out distraction or lose ourselves in busyness in the daily grind so as to try to forget our real predicament, that we are mortal beings, end quote. The distractions from technology, keeping a busy schedule, not spending regular time with ourselves, actually do the opposite of what we are seeking. Assuming we are seeking a life of contentment, partaking in distraction holds our life experience on the surface. Quote, it's only by facing our finitude that we can step into a fully authentic relationship with life. End quote. When we consciously accept that our time is limited, the motivation builds to, quote, finally become truly present in our lives, end quote. Quote, what you pay attention to will define for you what reality is, end quote. By letting ourselves be distracted by the alerts, the dings, the bings, the tings, whatever you want to call them, the scrolling on free apps that actually use us as the commodity, the whatever you look to pull you away from what you don't want to do or don't want to explore that will deepen your life experience, fill that in for yourself right there, not choosing to engage with your life, with the truth of life. Not choosing is actually happen when you choose these distractions. And this is how we deny our finitude as human beings. One more point to help inspire you to rethink how you use your time online when you go online. Quote, the attention economy is designed to prioritize whatever's most compelling instead of what's ever most true or most useful. It systematically distorts the picture of the world we carry in our heads at all times. It influences our sense of what matters, what kinds of threats we face, and all these distorted judgments then influence how we allocate our offline time as well, end quote. The misstep, however, when we do accept that distractions are not in our best interest, is to become busier and fill every minute with something on our to-do list. But that would be the wrong correction. Let's take a look at the next item on today's list, number 6, to better understand how to not creep back into busyness. Now, before we get to number 6, I have a couple of sponsors to introduce you to, and then I'll be right back. Is there something interfering with your happiness? Is there something preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist, connect in a safe and private online environment that's also convenient. This is not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online, and you can start communicating in under 48 hours. With licensed professional counselors who are specialized in depression, stress, LGBTQ matters, family conflicts, self-esteem, trauma, sleep, you're sure to find what you need. Everything you share is confidential, and it's time for you to start living a happier life today. As a listener of the Simple Sophisticate podcast, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting the sponsor of our show today, betterhelp.com/simple. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/simple. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Thrive Cosmetics. Thrive Cosmetics products are made with clean, high-performance, skin-loving ingredients. Their clinically proven formulas not only highlight your best features, they actually improve your skin over time. All Thrive Cosmetics products are formulated without parabens, sulfates, and phthalates. Thrive Cosmetics has a bold mission that's bigger than beauty. For every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help women thrive. For example, women emerging from homelessness, surviving domestic abuse, fighting cancer, and more. Having used their Liquid Lash Extensions mascara, which has more than 11,000 five-star reviews and is the winner of the Allure Best of Beauty 2020 award, I found that it was smudge-free, clump-free, and flake-free, which makes it exactly what I'm looking for. It's made with clean, nourishing ingredients that support longer, stronger, and healthier-looking lashes over time. Visit thrivecosmetics.com/sophisticate for 15% off your first order. This is an exclusive offer only for Simple Sophisticate listeners, so be sure to visit Thrive Cosmetics, that's CAUSEMETICS.com/sophisticate for 15% off your first order. thrivecosmetics.com/sophisticate. Number 6, reduce instead of manage your obligations and activities vying for your time. Quote, most productivity experts act merely as enablers of our time troubles by offering ways to keep on believing it might be possible to get everything done. But it's a lie, end quote. Being honest and clear-eyed about your priorities, eliminating the middling priorities as Warren Buffett describes them, those priorities that are seductive enough to distract you from the ones that matter most, ensures what matters to you receives your full attention. However, this is where many of us hesitate. If I let go of this item on the list, that path is no longer part of my life journey. But by holding all of these items on your list, none of them receive your full attention, your full presence, and life is not actually lived, at least not lived well or deeply. As Burkeman shares in his inclusion of Kafka, quote, he yearned to live more than one life, end quote. And the reality is, each of us only has one life. We must make decisions, let go, be present, and savor the life we have. He makes a very strong argument that when we do that, even though making that decision can be terribly stressful, can create a lot of confusion, make you very nervous, feel very risky, there's something inside of you that knows what you should do. It may take time to get to that decision. Don't rush that. But also, you're not going to have certainty that it's going to work out either. So you have to let go of that. But he says that's when your contentment actually improves and increases. When you finally make that decision, when you finally take that turn, make that leap, commit to that, whatever it is, job, person, whatever it is, because you've said, this is my choice, and you move forward and you focus deeply on it. So that's number 6. And that's also how we can avoid creeping back to busy, by letting go of all the middling priorities that are vying for our attention and instead focus on those handful that are most important. Number 7, celebrate the ironic truth of taking action. The calm ensues. As I just mentioned at the end of number 6, this is the beautiful paradox of making decisions. Quote, in consciously making a commitment, you're closing off your fantasies of infinite possibilities in favor of the joy of missing out. This is also why it can be so unexpectedly calming to take action you'd been fearing or delaying, to finally hand in your notice at work, become a parent, address a festering family issue, or close on a house purchase. When you can no longer turn back, anxiety falls away because now there's only one direction to travel, forward into the consequences of your choice. End quote. And this is what I love about his writing. He uses terms like consequences with regards to making it sound like this is, okay, here we go. But that's how we perceive making a choice, that we're losing something. The reality is we are gaining so much more. Number 8, we cannot know, and so we must let go of trying to control. Quote, worry at its core is the repetitious experience of a mind attempting to generate a feeling of security about the future, failing, then trying again and again and again, as if the very effort of worrying might somehow help forestall disaster. The fuel behind worry, in other words, is the internal demand to know in advance that things will turn out fine. But the struggle for control over the future is a stark example of our refusal to acknowledge our built-in limitations when it comes to time, because it's a fight the worrier obviously won't win. You can never be truly certain about the future. And so your reach will always exceed your grasp. End quote. Burkeman again shares that it is not a bad idea to plan, for example, the retirement that will come if we are so fortunate, or making time to go vote in order to improve the chances for the future we wish to turn out. The problem, that which causes anxiety, quote, is the need that we feel from our vantage point here in the present moment to be able to know that those efforts will prove successful. Let me read that quote to you again. The problem with planning, the part of it that causes the anxiety is, quote, the need that we feel from our vantage point here in the present moment to be able to know that those efforts will prove successful. End quote. His example to explain his point is helpful. He shares, it's a recipe for a life of unending stress to insist that you must be able to feel certain now that this is how your relationship is definitely going to unfold in the future, end quote. In other words, let go of needing to be reassured. The only thing, or in this case, person, that can provide reassurance is you to yourself, telling yourself that you are doing the best that you can and will continue to do your best. And whatever happens, you will be able to navigate through to the best of your ability. You are not being the victim. You are not reacting. You are being present, observing, setting your boundaries, but not forcing someone else to place theirs in a certain place. That is for them to do. I'll refer you to a previous podcast episode, number 301 from last season, because we talk about what I think would be really helpful in this particular point, to remind ourselves to tending to our tasks, those things that are our responsibility, and letting others tend to theirs. And when we do that, we can let go of worry about what someone else is going to do. Are they going to be okay? Whatever our tasks are, so long as we've tended to them, we can let go and find peace. And that's where we can help ourselves out and reduce the worry, if not eliminate it. That's number 8. We cannot know, so we must let go of trying to control. Number 9, refrain from taking planning too far. Quote, but planning is an essential tool for constructing a meaningful life and for exercising our responsibilities toward other people. The real problem isn't planning. It's that we take our plans to be something they aren't. End quote. Burkeman succinctly describes what plans are and all that they can be in our lives, even if we may want them to be more. Quote, they are a present moment statement of intent. End quote. That's it. A present moment statement of intent. He goes on to say with his cheeky humor, quote, the future, of course, is under no obligation to comply. End quote. And that is where the letting go must happen. That is where the magic of life happens, the unexpected, the never could have imagined, the gift that makes life what it is, the tragedy of life, yes, but in those moments we are reminded blatantly of our mortality, and if nothing else, It should wake us up to live more fully in the present each and every day, tending only to our tasks and letting others tend to theirs, and savoring all that is around us. So 9 is refrain from taking planning too far. 10, give up hope and elevate your life. Yep, that's what I said. Give up hope and elevate your life. Quote, giving up hope in a certain sense does kill you. It kills the fear-driven, control-chasing, ego-dominated version of you, the one who cares intensely about what others think of you, about not disappointing anyone or stepping too far out of line in case the people in charge find some way to punish you for it later. You find that the civilized you died. The manufactured, fabricated, stamped, molded you died. The victim died. And the you that remains is more alive than before. End quote. The paradox of giving up hope for a better anything, a perfect anything, is, Burkeman writes, when you confront things as they really are, quote, you're open enough to let all the good things in more fully too, on their own terms, instead of trying to use them to bolster your need to know that everything will turn out fine, end quote. Perhaps the better phrase, as opposed to giving up hope, is to let go and immerse yourself in the everyday, just as it is, and as you choose to be in that moment. So really quickly, 10 is give up hope and elevate your life. But I think that's what drew me to his book. It's different. It's not irreverent. It's realistic, but there is a dose of inspiration and motivation to, okay, that's the truth. Now let's move on. We can do this. We got this. I don't know how to describe it other than it's the realist meets the romantic in a beautiful way. He talks directly, and his voice takes time to understand that his desired outcome is to help his readers discover how to live a more fulfilling life. But indeed it is. We can step out of our own way. When we do that, we acknowledge that is the only thing we have control over. And his book aims to help us understand, to do this letting go, to accept this reality of our mortality, so that we can go forward and savor the life we have and not spend our limited time on the future or working toward a future that will not make us any more content than we are right now. We have a great potential to be really content right in this moment, and we're frittering it away, he argues, by constantly avoiding being there. And I agree with him. I appreciate this perspective. It's a different way of getting to being present, and everyone's motivated by different things. And I found this to be a very logical approach to getting us to go, okay, let's be present. We got this. And it does take practice. So be patient with yourself. I simplify this a bit. So I recommend checking out his entire book. But essentially, once you do have all the essentials, your health, a roof over your head, a safe place, an income that provides for the necessities. And I say this to remind ourselves to keep what is a necessity in check, because often our necessity list expands as our income grows. But when we have those necessities, those essentials, I should say, of life already taken care of, we can hold ourselves in each day, each moment, engage with it, let go of expectation and trying to control the outcomes, and we will find more peace, and we will experience a more exuberant and magical life. His book is 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. His name is Oliver Burkeman, and you can visit this list and everything that we've shared today on the show notes on the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast311, or simply go to tsll.co/podcast311. And I'll be right back with 2 petit plaisirs. But first, our final 2 sponsors. Whether you're back in the office or still in your loungewear working from home, life's day-to-day responsibilities may be lacking or feeling they're lacking something, such as travel. FunJet Vacations is a one-stop shop for all your vacation needs, and as experts in the industry, FunJet Vacations offers customers a fast, easy, and fun way to book their next vacation with exclusive package deals to all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. For a limited time, the listeners of the Simple Sophisticate podcast can use promo code FUNJET75 for $75 off your next FunJet vacation at REU Hotels and Resorts. Whether you're looking for a family-friendly resort or an adults-only getaway, there's a REU Hotel and Resort for you. To get started, just go to funjet.com or contact your travel advisor and you'll be out of the office in no time. Offer is only valid at funjet.com when booked by October 15th for travel through December 2021. Restrictions apply. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Woodstock Chimes. Did you know that Woodstock Chimes were the first wind chimes tuned to specific notes, changing the industry forever from looks pretty and makes noise to looks pretty and sounds amazing? Founder and owner Gary Kivstad is a Grammy Award-winning professional musician and has created a company known for finely tuning musical instruments played by the wind. These chimes have been called musical works of art and are the world's favorite wind chime. Over 40 years in business, they have sold their chimes in all 50 states and around the world. Woodstock Chimes offers chimes tuned to various melodies and music scales, and each one is different and delightful. They also have decorative chimes, wind bells, gongs, fountains, and sun catchers to help you create tranquil spaces in your home or garden, and a line of personalized hit chimes that are laser engraved with your own message prior to shipping. All of them make great gifts. You can listen to sound samples on the website, and you'll even find wonderfully large, deep-toned chimes that really make a statement in your entryway or gazebo. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, you have the opportunity to get 15% off by going to chimes.com and using the promo code SIMPLE. Go to chimes.com, the world's favorite wind chime, and use the code SIMPLE to get 15% off. Welcome back. I have two petit plaisirs for you as we kick off this 8th season of the Simple Sophisticate. And just to let you know and remind you how we ended season 7, a petit plaisir not only will be on the show notes for this episode, but will also be in its own individual post on the blog, and it has its own category in the archives. So you can go to the archives, click petit plaisirs, and find all of the petit plaisirs from previous episodes as well as this one. So the first one is a comedy mystery series, and they are calling it that, a comedy mystery series, that stars Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. And it is on Hulu, and it is called Only Murders in the Building. Nostalgic yet modern. A comedy yet filled with drama. Co-creator Steve Martin's Only Murders in the Building premiered in late August on Hulu, releasing a new episode each Tuesday. And now, my Tuesday nights are reserved for the trio of Selena Gomez, Martin Short, and Steve Martin, as they use their amateur sleuthing skills to find out who murdered Tim Kono, a fellow resident in their Upper West Side apartment building in New York City. Turning the show into a show about a show, because these three are avid podcast listeners themselves of true crime series, they begin to create a podcast titled, you guessed it, Only Murders in the Building. Each episode follows what they discover about the actual murder in the Arconia and share it with listeners, all the while trying to fund the show to keep Martin Short's character in his apartment, unbeknownst to his counterparts. Drawing on nostalgia from capers and storytelling techniques from the past, married with jokes and contemporary issues and fads from the 21st century, the series hooks you immediately, at the very least, to figure out how these three once strangers who live in the same building. The building is fictitiously named the Arconia, a pre-war apartment building, but it is actually the Belle Nord, which is located on the Upper West Side. All of the exterior shots, courtyard shots, and elevator shots are filmed in this building, which is beautiful. You wonder, how are they going to solve this mystery? And with each episode, you become even more intrigued. to know what each of these three amateur detectives hold in their own past, from the illustrated intro animations and catchy jingle to open each episode, to the cameos of one or more well-known individuals. Tina Fey, Sting, and Nathan Lane appear in the first 3 episodes alone, with more to come. A more muted Steve Martin, making him all the more sensationally hilarious, allowing Martin Short's character to give full comedic chops to showcase why these two friends in real life work brilliantly together. And to Gomez's dry, savvy, contemporary humor, you add in the historic beauty of the setting and the Belnord, called the Arconia, and of course New York, and then the series just becomes a treat to be savored with each episode. There are 10 episodes in this first season. There's no word officially yet if there will be a second. And the 4th episode is being released tomorrow, Tuesday, September 7th. You know I'll be tuning in, and maybe you will be as well. Here is the trailer for Only Murders in the Building.
How well do you know your neighbors? You see many of them every day, but have you ever wondered what goes on behind their doors?
Are you associated with the deceased?
No. We're neighbors in the building.
So you don't know him?
Just in passing.
Not his passing.
No, yes, when we passed by him.
Before he passed.
That's right.
We find the right connection, and all this cracks open.
I can't tell if I want it to be nothing or for it to be something.
We began with the question, how well do you know your neighbors? Turns out
The ones you thought you knew best.
might be the ones you know the least.
Every true crime story is actually true for someone.
And this is just occurring to you.
I think we should just hit him with the charm.
Good. Excellent. So I'll take the lead on this.
Excuse me?
Well, I can turn on the charm.
Is it on now?
It's warming up.
So this series premiered on August 31st. Again, there are 3 episodes right now available. Tomorrow or Tuesday, there'll be a new episode that will drop. There are cameos from fantastic individuals. Tina Fey is in the first episode. Sting is in the 3rd, and I'd probably be the 4th. I have a feeling based on how the 3rd episode ended. Nathan Lane is in a couple already. So there's a handful of, and they don't make a big splash except for Sting's is pretty obvious. But Tina Fey, to look closely to let yourself know, oh, that's Tina Fey. So look closely on episode 1. But anyway, Only Murders in the Building. I think you'll enjoy it. Critics are enjoying it as well. And it's just well done. It's a different approach to telling a murder mystery. And of course, it involves a podcast. So, I thought I could not bring it to y'all. So I hope you enjoy it. All right. The second petit plaisir is actually one that I shared this past month in August, not attached to an episode. So I wanted to bring it to you because it is another series that is one I thoroughly enjoyed. I binged it one weekend and finished it, and I hope there's a second season. It is The Chair with Sandra Oh on Netflix. Sandra Oh from Killing Eve and Grey's Anatomy. It is a comedy series, and it's co-created by Amanda Peet. And again, this one is receiving great praise. Now, this series takes us back into the classroom. We're on a university campus, and with so many students and teachers and professors going back to school right now, this is we've all been students at some point in our lives in some degree or another. So there's different nostalgia here or different memories that pop up. But this is a lovely, unique comedy series as well. It's already been raved about by The Atlantic as the best drama to hit television in years. The reviewers, as I mentioned, it's a comedy, but The Atlantic called it a drama, and I respect The Atlantic's opinion, but they can't seem to agree on the genre that it falls into, but they all can agree that it's a hit. I'm calling it a comedy, as creator Amanda Peet herself shared that her objective, quote, had always been to write a romantic comedy in the vein of Tootsie or Broadcast News. I didn't set out to take a stand on anything. I meant to truly make an intimacy piece and a workplace romantic comedy like the ones that I love. So if she calls it a comedy, I'm calling it a comedy. After having watched the entire season, there are 6 episodes. my mind is made up. This is a comedy. There's a bit of satire to it because it is centered around Sandra Oh's character, Ji Jun Kim, who has just been tapped as the first female and woman of color for the English department chair at the fictitious Pembroke University. Filming did take place at Pittsburgh University as well as Jefferson and Washington University. And I say that it, yes, indeed has elements of satire because they're taking current events. They're taking a lot of different social issues, current event issues that are topical right now, and they're challenging them. For example, with gender norms, with the patriarchy, with ageism, with social media and misinformation, free speech, the cancel culture. They're bringing all of this in, and just about all of the ones I just listed there are in the first episode, and most of them carry off the entire first season. And they're making you look at it in a more nuanced way. There is exaggeration and various aspects of each of those to make us understand that there are no black and white issues. There are a lot of gray in every issue, and we need to wake up to this reality and not just jump to one side and close our ears. Admittedly, as a retired English teacher for the past 2 decades, I'm catching all these allusions and these witticisms by the professors. It was an absolute treat, especially when they poke fun at areas of heated debate like the curriculum or seniority or tenure. I mean, is this an English geek comedy series? Yes. But perhaps I come by it honestly, and I think many of you will as well. Bring on the Chaucer. Holland Taylor is in this, and she is a Chaucer expert, and she has some fantastic scenes. So if you enjoy her, you're going to love this series even more. But they also bring in contemporary works of art, and there's a discussion about that with different members in the department. What should be taught? How should it be taught? So it's a lot of fun. What I appreciate about the creation of the lead character, Ji Jun Kim, is their choice to keep her strong. Of course, any protagonist must be flawed in some way, but they don't give her relationship problems to the extreme. They don't put her in a secondary seat. They give her respect for her choice to pursue her career and, quote, ascend her profession, as her colleague commends, and take us into her personal life as an adoptive mother experiencing the unrealistic realities put upon mothers who choose to do both, especially single mothers. Of course, the stress and problems will ensue as her love interest becomes embroiled in a problem, which drives the whole season, even though taken out of context, but also of his own making. Sandra Oh's brilliance is her unassuming humor in everyday situations, presented in her deadpan style. She is an actress who can dance from drama to suspense to comedy effortlessly. And there is no doubt in my mind that this series will be back for seasons 2, 3, and many more to come. Here is the trailer for The Chair.
We're concerned about what's going on in the department.
This is already all over social media. This department's hanging on by a thread. Bill's incident is spinning out of control.
Oh, there she is.
Our first lady chair.
Woman, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We're in dire crisis.
I wouldn't be surprised if the president asked for Bill's resignation.
Can he stay for dinner?
No.
No wonder nobody wanted to marry you.
Are you two involved?
My defending Professor Dobson has nothing to do with my feelings for him, which are entirely platonic and professional.
Everybody knows she's in love with him. You wearing makeup?
What? No.
It's pretty. Don't you ever think about it?
When I see something, I wish I had shut up. Yeah.
Professor Dobson? I just like him. He's smart and hot.
Don't take your jacket off.
I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. Get your shit together.
I like when you act like you're my boss.
I am your boss.
This has become a serious reputational matter.
Oh, God. Sorry, I thought you were naked. You should be running this place. Instead, you're running around playing nice. I feel like someone handed me a ticking time bomb because they wanted to make sure a woman was holding him when it explodes.
Nobody wants to come out and support you when you're a scandalous figure. Your boy's toast.
Tell me what to do.
You're going to apologize.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my God, not to me, dumbass. I am the chair of the department. Let's fucking shake this place up.
So again, that is The Chair. It's on Netflix, all 6 episodes. It is hard to stop at just 1, 2, 3, even 4. I mean, I just had to keep on going. So if you can do it, I am bowing down. It is a great show, and I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisirs, where on each episode, ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode, where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. As we wrap up today, I wanted to send a thank you to a reviewer who wrote at the end of this last August, "Let's travel to Paris, a 5-star review. This podcast interview was simply excellent, informative, practical, and charming. I look forward to experiencing Paris Perfect or London Perfect apartment rentals the next time I travel there." Thank you, JT Bollinger. And the episode she's referring to episode 309, where the founder of Paris Perfect Rentals joined me to talk about the experience of staying in one of their luxury vacation rentals. If you enjoy this podcast, even just ranking it, if you don't have time to give a written review, does so much positive work for this show because it reveals to listeners what they can expect when they tune in. There are a lot of episodes, and this show has grown, but there's some things that have remained consistent. We have almost 1,000 reviews internationally. And so as the show has grown, if you too are enjoying it, please do share what it is that keeps you tuning in. Your review may appear on a future episode, and I want to thank you for the time to consider doing so because I know your lives are busy. Thank you very much for tuning in as we begin a brand new season. Be sure to listen to the outro if you haven't already, as I've updated that. But a quick just reminder that this show has its own Instagram account now. You can always follow along on the Simply Luxurious Life on Instagram to be alerted to new episodes and news about this podcast. But if you only want to know just about this podcast, episodes, anything that's associated with this show, follow the Simple Sophisticate podcast on Instagram, and you'll be alerted whenever there's a new episode, which is every first and third Monday. I'll be back on Monday, September 20th with a brand new episode. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful first full week of September. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog The Simply Luxurious Life with the shortened URL tsll.co. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, be sure to pick up my first 2 books. Each are available in hardback, paperback, ebook, and at Audible for audio listening. The first is titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and the second, Living the Simply Luxurious Life. And look for a third book to be released in the spring of 2022. Readers can now join the more intimate Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which provides ad-free unlimited reading and access to exclusive content such as each month's A Cup of Moments video chat, tours of my home, Le Papillon, the regular monthly post, What Made Me Smile, and Saturday Ponderings, as well as the opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, and the cooking show, as well as receive exclusive news and an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free monthly newsletter, which arrives on the last day of each month. And there's a weekly newsletter, a favorite of listeners and readers, which is also free and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a cup of morning coffee and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Thank you for tuning in today, and look for 2 new episodes of this podcast each month on the first and third Monday. To be alerted to new episodes and when they become available, follow on Instagram, the Simple Sophisticate podcast, and only the news about this show will be shared. Until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée.